Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. I'm Stephanie West. I'm a licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan and owner and operator of In Progress Counseling. I'm going to share a little bit about my own therapy journey today. Last week when I met with my therapist, we created a cool workspace with some language that I want to kind of invite you into understanding, because I suspect my angst is not, custom tailored to me. So before I share that, I do want to kind of normalize the process of therapy, in the sense that I'm going on about the end of the third year that I've been in therapy. Now, for the first year and a half, my life was, it was chaos, right? And so we were trying to reconstruct out of the rubbles of a nuke going off in my life. And I know I've shared that pretty intermittently. But what happened was it was weekly experiences for probably the first year and a half. So we're talking about, 75 weeks of weekly therapy. And I like to equate it with basically like emotional chiropractic care. Something is out of joint and I need an adjustment, and then I take a week, and by times I get back, things are out of joint again, and so I need an adjustment. After about the first year and a half, we went down to every other week. And then for probably the last 8 months, it's intermittent as needed, depending on what I'm experiencing. And so right now, probably between 4 and 6 weeks typically. But what therapy looks like now is typically we create a space for me to share what's going on currently, and we create language around it. And then I always leave with an action plan of what does it look like to move through this same frustration if it shows up again. And so it's a very solutions focused brief therapy that I'm doing now, where it used to be more of kind of a psychoanalytic, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I needed more kind of direct, kind of just to be heard and to be held and to be kind of poured into by way of like wisdom and best practices. And so there's different seasons to my personal therapy journey. Many clients find that to be the same. But what happened over the last couple weeks is I've had several people reach out to me and say, Steph, something's off here. Like there's a heaviness, there's a sadness. And admittedly there is, but not at my level of consciousness, right? I know that I'm more fatigued. I'm just a touch more sensitive. And so when I went to my therapist and I said, hey, people are reaching out and saying they see something, and I'm not necessarily, picking up on it, but I can tell that I'm really fatigued. He said, Steph, it's probably you've been in problem solving mode for a little while here. Let's create a workspace around that. And I was sharing with him a recent anecdote where I was spending time in close proximity to someone who is just highly critical. They're highly critical by their nature. I've historically always known them to be highly critical, but it is a relationship that I value, that I'm insistent that I show up in. But when I show up in it, there's usually some residual wear and tear to my nervous system. And I know, culturally, a lot of times we're like, well, cut out toxic people and all of the things. I think there are some relationships that we highly value, and we can skill build, and we can enter them and then exit them. And sometimes we might need compassionate care after the fact. And I think that's okay. I think sometimes we're willing to pay that price when we love someone. And so, for anyone that's like, well, that's your own fault for being with them. Well, I disagree. I show up in that relationship because I do love this person dearly, but I always pay a price for showing up. And so as I'm explaining some of what I had experienced in our most recent intersection, I was talking about how, if I went left, they'd be like, ha ha ha, you're such a ninny, you should have gone right. Or there's just a constant kind of commentary flowing about how I'm like getting stuff wrong. And my therapist said to me, he said, whoa, he said, that sounds exhausting, that you were constantly being scored when you were with this person. There's a constant scoreboard running and you were getting pass fail grades constantly. And I said, yes, that's what it was. I didn't want to go left because it would be right or wrong. I didn't want to go right because it would be pass or fail. I didn't want to go up because it would be some sort of diatribe about how, well, what were you thinking? Why did you go in that direction? Now, I'm using, vague terms. That's obviously, it wasn't like left or right choices, but there wasn't a win when I was with this person, and there was just a constant scoring at my expense. Now, once we put the language to it, it was really helpful for me to say, yes, that was hurtful. I was being scored. It was unnecessary. We were having a power struggle that I wasn't even participating in, but something was going on with them where they were just highly critical of me. And so once we had that language, I was able to say, okay, they're keeping score. I'm not going to keep score. I'm going to have to sit with my therapist and process through this. And then in the future, I'm just going to wonder what strategies do I need to try to diffuse the situation when scorekeeping is happening. And then the process, we kind of stumbled along the pervasive fear of like, man, I must be getting it wrong all the time. I must really just kind of suck sometimes because I'm getting this highly critical feedback about all the things I'm doing wrong, right? And so it's hitting me at the nervous system level. And so the problem I've been trying to solve since that experience was like, well, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I am getting it wrong. Am I not doing the right thing? And my brain has just had a kind of compounding taxation trying to figure out why I was so heavily criticized. Now, I know why I was criticized. It's because the person I was with is highly critical, right? It's not because I'm worth criticizing, but my brain kind of really went into problem-solving mode about how do I protect myself from that criticism. But the fact is I can't protect myself from someone who's going to be a constant scorekeeper. That's the price I pay to be in relationship with them. And so now my task is to kind of equip myself accordingly. When scorekeeping is happening, what do I want to do with that? But I want to just invite those of you into those of you who have been a part of highly critical environments, I want to invite you into the language of it's awful to be score kept at everything you do. And I'm sorry that's happening. That is a them problem. It's not a you problem. You have value. You are worthy. You are not worth decimating and tearing down just because someone is, keeping some peculiar scoreboard on their end. And I just want to give language that other people scorekeeping us, other people putting us in boxes of pass or fail, right or wrong, that is a them thing. It's not a you thing. It's not a me thing. It's what they're choosing to do. And if you have to pay that price to be in a relationship with someone, at least equip yourself accordingly. And sometimes language is a great starting point for that.